Does your child struggle to tell you what they want? Maybe they have a hard time pronouncing certain sounds or words. Or perhaps there are words that your child has learned, but he or she is not using them functionally. In this video, we are going to talk about the following: when we should jump into action and what we can do to support our child's language and communication skills. We're going to speak about the Speech Blubs app, activity maps that you can go and implement with your child at home, video modeling, setting up the environment to support your child's interaction and communication, labeling, modeling, and referencing, and then some frequently asked questions. Make sure that you watch until the end of this video because I'm going to share with you some practical strategies and ideas to increase and improve your child's speech production and communication skills. It might be that your child is just developing a little slower than his or her peers, but it's always good to err on the side of caution. And in this case, it is worth considering. What if my child perhaps falls on the autism spectrum? My name is Nanette and I'm one of the co-founders of AIMS Global. I studied to be a teacher quite a few years ago now. I've been in the field of special needs and particularly the field of autism for the past 15 years or so. And I'm also a mother to 3 young children myself. That is the fact that I'm a mother to 3 young children. That is what really makes a difference for me. And that is what causes me to want to share some practical strategies and ideas with you. Today we partnered with Speech Blubs app, an amazing tool that our students use to work on speech development. Previously, we showcased how well Speech Blubs combined with our course, Creating the Perfect Environment, and some elements we have explained in that course. We wanted to share with you some more in-depth information on how to get the most out of your Speech Blubs app that has been designed to increase speech production in children from 2 to 8 years of age. At AIMS Global, as I've already mentioned, we feel very strongly about sharing practical skills with parents to help their children in a way that is effective and makes a real positive difference in everyday life for every single family. We specialize in increasing communication, socialization, independence, and life skills with the children that we work with. Some family members and even some professionals perhaps might try and reassure us parents, and it comes from a good place, but so often we hear, he's a boy, or his aunt was just like that. He's a boy, he'll talk later, don't worry about it now. But ultimately, we just know when our child is delayed in speech production and communication skills. And the tricky thing is, it's impossible to scientifically prove the moms just know feeling to professionals or to some friends. If you feel in any way that your child needs some support with his or her language and/or communication skills, we would definitely encourage you to make an appointment with a speech therapist or a speech pathologist in your area. A speech therapist would be able to do an evaluation and then give you a therapy or a support plan specifically designed for your child going forward. You can also reach out to the speech therapist on the Speech Blubs Facebook group, as there is always something that you could do while waiting for an assessment with a speech therapist in your area. However, there are also ways that you can support your child at home as a mother, a dad, an au pair, a nanny. And yes, it's always a good idea to see a professional speech and language pathologist, but generalizing progress to your home environment is crucial. And at the end of this video, we are going to share some tips with you on how to combine practical strategies with professional tips from our speech and language friends at AIMS Global and the Speech Blubs app. So, as parents, when should we move from anxiety to action? A typical child in their first year can usually say some words. These might include mama, dada, or no. They gesture to what they want and point at required items. When a child is 2 years old, they say roughly around 50 words, and their gaze or their eye contact tracks people, animals, often animals, and objects consistently and remarkably for longer periods as they grow up. At the age of 3 years, a child's vocabulary exponentially grows up to 1,000 words. the increase continues in this trajectory for the next couple of years. These are just the basic guidelines, of course, for typical language development, but there is so much more that goes into communicating effectively. Is your child's pronunciation accurate and clear? Does he or she comprehend what they are requesting or commenting on even? Are they only communicating with certain people, perhaps, or in a certain way? Perhaps not a lot of back and forth conversations going on as they grow older. Is it a speech and language delay or a communication delay, perhaps? Okay, I don't want to be increasing your anxiety by focusing on these questions. The point is that a speech and language pathologist will be able to tell you what the exact nature of your child's possible delay might be. But there is also some good news. We can work on all of these in the same way with fun activities. There are definite things that we can do to increase the likelihood for our child to increase their speech production. Before we start with these activities, though, it is important to note that no matter your child's developmental or chronological age, these activities can easily be adapted to your child's specific needs and interests, I might add. As mentioned, I have 3 children myself, and I wanted to ensure that the advice that I give parents is truly research-based, but also tested with my own children. And that to me is really important. We need to know as parents that these activities and these ideas are going to work with our children and in the home environment. My kids are 9, 7, and 4 years old, and I combined 2 essential concepts to work on increasing speech and communication skills in all my children. These 2 are activity maps and the Speech Blubs app. Let's dive into what are activity maps and the Speech Blubs app. First, let me give you a little bit of background on both of these elements. Activity maps are fun, interactive, recipe-like activities created by our team at AIMS Global. One of our pillars at AIMS, from working with autistic adults and other neurodivergent individuals, is to focus on teaching concepts rather than teaching individual skills. Another pillar for us is to focus on teaching and for our child learning within interest-based activities. Our children, just like us, learn best when they are interested in the activity at hand. A strength-based approach is vital, and always remembering your child's sensory profile and their sensory needs, the sensory regulation, that will ensure that he or she is not just mentally, but also emotionally and even physically ready for the task that you are about to do. So combining this with a Speech Blubs app, I was first introduced to Speech Blubs by one of our AIMS Global clients who noticed a remarkable improvement in her 4-year-old son when she combined our therapy support with their Speech Blub time every day. Speech Blubs is a speech learning app that offers a variety of fun, engaging, and educational activities that will boost your child's speech while providing interactive fun for your entire family, really, siblings included. Speech Blubs core, the core concept of video modeling for children by children is based on empirical research in successfully improving speech production. That is something that I just want to highlight again. It's not just video modeling, but it's video modeling for children done by children. So they actually use children in their videos and in their activities for the child watching and doing the activity using the Speech Blubs app. They've got something to relate to. It's someone their own age or close to their age working with them through this app. So video modeling for children, but also by children. So what better way to combine practical strategies from a holistic approach with a research-based concept of video modeling from Speech Blubs? Let's stop here for a moment and talk about what video modeling is and how it can work for autistic individuals. Video modeling is a relatively recent phenomenon in teaching. Creer and Miklick's study in 1970 was the first to explore its use. The website researchautism.net reports that the first reported evidence for the use of video modeling as a treatment for a child with autism spectrum disorder was reported in 1982 by Steinborn and Knapp. They used a behavioral training program and a classroom-based model of a traffic environment to teach a child on the autism spectrum pedestrian skills. Since then, video modeling has been the go-to method for teaching social skills to kids with autism and speech delay as well. How video modeling works: when a child is observing other children in the video performing the desired behavior, in this case, saying different words, different sounds, or even singing songs perhaps, that triggers the child's mirror neurons, which start the imitation process. It helps even more if the parent is participating as well in the activity, mirroring the child expert in the video as well. That is not just helping our child to show them what to do, but also giving them the confidence boost to try it out, and also making sure that we help them feel more comfortable engaging and interacting within these activities. Let's briefly talk about what the core features of Speech Blubs are. The Speech Blubs app is based on a 3-step approach, the 3 steps being model, imitate, and contextualize. In the Speech Blubs app, video modeling has child teachers, and that is something that I personally really like. These child teachers show how to pronounce words and sounds. The app encourages children to imitate, and at Speech Blubs, we also encourage parents to participate in the practicing. As with any activity, it's better to have shorter sessions more often, more regularly, than a really long session once in a while. This helps our children to be engaged, to really be focused for a short amount of time, and then the activity is over again. Instead of expecting them to sit down perhaps, to be focused, to be regulated for a really long time, which is a very difficult task for many of our children, and any child for that matter. We want our children to have fun with the Speech Blubs app, so there are fun and engaging elements added to the learning, like face filters, bubble popping, and even fun facts in between. That also ensures that if your child is interested in the fun facts part, that is something that can be reinforcing for them throughout. If your child is more into the bubble popping games or the face filters, which some of them really enjoy doing, that is something that can be reinforcing and also keep their interest and motivation going throughout the activities. Speech Blubs encourages children to find the word they had just learned through the app in their real life environment, to transfer and generalize the concept into the real world, which is really important. And this is with the help of a parent, of course. Now, before we engage our children in any kind of activity, it is really important that the environment is conducive to learning, conducive to supporting our child in whatever the activity is that they are about to do. So let's talk a little bit about a very important question: how to create an autism-friendly environment. Let's set the scene first. What do we need to create an autism-friendly environment that is truly conducive for all children and, believe it or not, even for adults? The first one, create a sensory corner, sensory tent, or a little sensory section even in your house. This will be our go-to before we start an activity and afterwards. Add your child's favorite fidget toys that are safe for him or her to use independently, some soft toys, pillows, a blanket, anything else that you feel would be calming during decompression time. Also, if you are able to do this in any way, get your child to help you set up that little sensory section or sensory corner in the room. We want them to be part of it. We want them, if you have a way of getting your child to choose which toys, which activities, which sensory items they would like in this space, encourage them to make those choices and to let you know what they would like you to add to the space. So involve them as much as possible. Then the second one, create a visual schedule. That will show when you will start the activity map or the game, what it will entail, and then when it will be done. Also, add the sensory fun time to the visual schedule. So you might have the visual schedule that says at the top sensory time, or if you want to call it chill space or tent or whatever you want to name it with your child. So you're going to have chill space, and then the activity map, the sections that you will follow, or the parts of the activity that you will do. And then at the end, going to the chill space again. So add that on the visual schedule. This will help your child to know exactly what to expect and when to expect it. It helps them to be more prepared. Then the third one, have a few fidget toys that your child really likes close by. This can be a stress ball, squeeze toy, something to pull on, a popper even, for example. And this is something that they can use throughout, even when you are busy with the activity. And then it's time for you to start your activity map. In our intensive parenting course, we share many activities with parents and even ways to create these easily by yourself. Remember to go and check that out on our website, aimsglobal.info. For this video, I'm going to share with you 2 of my and my children's favorite activity maps to show you how we combine these with a Speech Blubs app to mega boost vocal speech. The first one is the bubble snake, and I'm going to give you the link so that you can go and have a look at this activity map as well. Before you start with this game, make sure that you ensure your child is interested in bubbles, pretend snakes, and messiness. Look at your Speech Blubs app for all the things to do with snakes, animals in general, snakes, where they live, what they eat, stories about snakes and reptiles perhaps, sounds of different animals. It's easier if you know where to guide your child on the app beforehand. So that is something that I would always suggest. If you are about to do an activity with your child on the Speech Blubs app, especially if you're just starting out with it, play around with the app first. Do some activities first without your child so that you know how the app works. It can be really frustrating for our kids if they are sitting there waiting for something to happen and you're not sure where to find certain things. So go and do that first, set it up first, and make sure you know where to find what. The Speech Blubs app is really straightforward, so you shouldn't take long to figure it out. Some pro tips to ensure you focus on increasing vocal speech, because that is one of the goals for this activity map. And ultimately, if you're going to be doing Speech Blubs, then that is your ultimate goal, improving and increasing vocal speech. Let's chat a little bit about pairing. Pair sounds, words, or phrases even with the activity as you are doing the activity. When you notice your child is enjoying a specific task, perhaps such as squeezing the dishwashing liquid out for the bubble snake, you can pair this action of squeezing with a sound such as P for push, if your child is struggling with sounds. I wouldn't recommend though starting with a sound S for squeezing, as it is quite difficult to produce, especially if your child has trouble with tongue control. Also, it's difficult to show our kids how to produce sounds that do require a lot of tongue control. It's easier to show them and to model the sounds where they use their lips and their mouth mainly to produce the sound, or at least for the formation, to get that right. Try to include sounds like P, U, E, B, R for initial pairing sounds. Words you can pair as well, such as blow for blowing the bubbles. When you notice your child is starting to imitate the words, try and change it up a little bit. Bubbles, so blow, bubbles. This way you can start working on chaining these words together later to create some sentences or phrases. If your child can produce some sentences, pairing different words together is an excellent way to increase his or her vocabulary. You can also include some fun sentences like bubbles on my back. And you can start it out in a fun, little bit of a different way. If we speak, we're not going to say bubbles on my back, but in a game or in an activity like the bubble snake, where it is relevant and it's functional and it's fun, play around with words, play around with sounds, play around with sentences or phrases to increase the motivation and even to make them aware of those little patterns within the sentence or the phrase or even the words. And that can just add a fun element to it as well. Bubbles on my back, or pop a bubble, pop, pop, pop. During the preparation of the activity, you can use the Speech Blubs as your reference and research. You can print the activity map of the bubble snake and you can have a clear plan. But to find a reference or 2 or 20, have a look at your app. This will ensure that you are already generalizing the activity to a different format and making it more real and functional for your child, with a bonus of working on communication throughout. Now, let's talk about what labeling, modeling, and referencing is. Label items in a fun and an interest-based way. Make sure you label items that your child finds interesting, not what you think he would find interesting necessarily, but make sure that it is really something that your child is interested in. If he or she likes the bubbles, you can count the bubbles, label the sizes, count how long they take before they pop. Modeling is an excellent way to increase language. The more we model the target behavior, which in this case is vocalizing, the more our children will follow suit. This does not mean we have to go around speaking non-stop. That could actually be quite irritating. But labeling, again, interesting sights, sounds, textures, the more likely your child will be able to and confident enough to start doing the same. We first increase language before we redirect the appropriateness of what is said. That is something really important and something that I am going to still get to frequently asked questions. But often parents ask us, my child is now starting to speak a little bit, and later they start to vocalize more and more, and it's going from sounds to words. But now, how do I ensure that it is functional and it's not just random words or sounds or phrases even? Hold that for a moment and let's focus on increasing speech production first, helping our kids to become confident with that, comfortable with using those sounds and words and phrases. And then later we can shape that into where it is more appropriate, what area, what activity calls for certain types of sounds or words. But for now, we are working on increasing speech production and improving pronunciation throughout. Referencing is another important concept to become familiar with, especially as the parent. We do this naturally, but we can always do a little bit more of it. Think of it as referencing back to previous experiences that remind you of the current scene. For example, if you completed the bubble snake, make sure that you take photos throughout the activity if you can, but also photos of the end product and the fun that you had along the way, wherever you can. It is a bit of a messy activity, but try to just snap a photo here and there. It doesn't have to be that many. Every time you see a play snake, pretend one in a storybook, or hear the sound, that gives you the perfect opportunity to reference back to the photos of the fun you had during this activity of the bubble snake. The more we reference past to present experiences, the more likely your child will start vocalizing their ideas and their thoughts on the topic. This also creates opportunity for them to think about that activity and to share the enjoyment and the communication involved in that again. Remember to provide free access to your child's sensory tent before, during, and after the activity. These activities are not a race to try and finish it as quickly as you can. It's always the journey to get there, which is the real important thing. And with increasing speech, we have to live in the moment. That's the easiest way to increase communication, to speak of what is right here, to speak of what is happening right now, the sounds and the sights we can hear and see. Always remember to refer to the visual schedule throughout this activity, but also any activity that you're doing with your child. This will keep your child's motivation and attention on task. Here's another activity map that you can consider in your own time, and this is the stick spider web game. We'll share this with you so that you can go and download and try it out yourself. Follow the suggestions discussed before, as with the bubble snack activity, and most of all, enjoy spending time with your child, with a bonus of increasing speech and vocalization, of course. You are more than welcome to send us an email if you want more activity maps. You can use the address hello@aimsglobal.info. I also promise that I will add some final tips from our speech and language pathologist and how to combine what we spoke of with professional advice. If your child sees a speech therapist, it is important to ask for the current goals that he or she is working on. Ask your therapist to provide you with a list of activities that you can do at home to generalize the goals to the home environment. If your child is not seeing a speech therapist at the moment, but going to a kindergarten or a play group even, you can do the same with the teachers. Send a communication book to therapy or to school and ask that general notes should be made after each session. Perhaps, how was your child during and after the session? Which games were played? Did anything funny or anything fun happen? Just something quick to note down. Don't expect too much though, because especially if it's a school environment, teachers don't always have time to go to sit down and write lots of information, but a thought here and there can make the world of difference. It's important now to read these notes that you receive from school or the therapy session, and then communicate with your child about it during, even on your way home. This way, you are working on not only generalizing goals, but also increasing spontaneous communication, which is important. Let's move on to the section that might be the most interesting part to you. I'm going to answer some of the most frequently asked questions that we often get from parents. How to know if my child has a speech delay or autism? If your child is inconsistent in their development, that might be something to take note of. If their milestones are not reached at the right time, you might want to schedule an appointment with your pediatrician. This is something you should try and figure out with the help of a professional. There are always things that for us as parents, we notice things, we pick up on certain things. Make notes of these and take it along when you go and see your child's pediatrician. But it's always something to work through, a process to work through with the help of a professional. The next question, my 2.5-year-old child still babbles. Does that mean that he has autism? Babbling may not only be a form of communication, but it can also be a strategy that a child may use to help him or her stay regulated. Keep an eye, or an ear in this case, on your child's babbling to determine if they are repeating certain sounds, repeating certain words, perhaps even phrases while they are babbling. Also, try to determine if the babbling happens more in certain scenarios or environments. These are all things worth mentioning to your child's speech therapist. My child is being assessed for autism. It's been rough for me emotionally and mentally. I'm so lost, I don't know what to do and whom to turn to. I feel alone, anxious, tired, and afraid. This is also a question that we often get from parents, especially when their child is going through the process of being diagnosed or just after being diagnosed. These are all feelings that we as parents deal with, and we have to learn how to deal with these feelings, because it is something that we all go through during that time. There are support systems. There's different ways of getting support out there You can always, if you feel that you don't have anyone to talk to or you're not sure where to go, you can always schedule a call with us at AIMS Global for some practical support strategies for you during this time. Then the next question, my child only screams for attention. How can I help him to communicate? If your child is receiving what they are screaming for, they will continue to engage in that behavior to gain access to that item, that activity, or that person. So let's say, for example, your child screams every time that they want their favorite snack or a treat, I should rather say. If they get the treat every time they scream, that is something that they have learned. If I scream, I'll get the treat. The most important thing here, and I cannot stress this enough, is to include a functional way for your child to communicate his or her needs. We go into a lot of detail on these methods in our intensive parenting course, but the best advice that I can give you, to keep it a short answer, would be to create a visual choice board with real photos of the items that your child likes. Add these on the walls in your home, in your child's room, in the kitchen, wherever it is that they want these items, and guide your child to rather point them to show you what they are looking for. If they learn how to use these communication systems, even if they're not necessarily using, or I should say, using words verbally to communicate these with you, if we can get another strategy in place to support them in the meantime, that could replace their need or feeling that they have to scream in order to convey a message to you. Activities to help children on the spectrum develop their reading skills. The most important aspect here is to find reading material that involves your child's interests. If your child shows an interest in a certain topic, it makes a daunting task like reading just that much easier. Be realistic and patient. Encourage your child to not only read words, but also to look at pictures to gain some information. Involve different sensory experiences to help your child solidify their reading skills, building letters and words out of Play-Doh or writing in the sand, for example. My 26-month-old with speech regression has made no progress in 6 months of speech therapy. In what amount of time would you expect at least a word or two? Is another question. Therapy and progress is different for each child, as we know. Saying that though, if your child is making no progress, it might be that your child is plateauing, and a bit of a change in routine or schedule in the form of therapy might be needed, and this is something that is worth considering. Try and find a holistic support system such as AIMS and combine this with a Speech Blubs app to give your child that extra motivation to engage and participate in various activities. What are the signs of nonverbal autism, and by which age would it be determined that my child is nonverbal? This is a difficult question to answer, as some of our non-speaking children develop normally until around the age of 2 years. They then might stop producing the sounds or words they were able to and become nonverbal or non-speaking. When you suspect your child struggles to produce sounds or words, it's best to write all these concerns down and take it to a speech and language therapist or your pediatrician even. Remember that you can always get a second opinion if you feel that your doctor is not taking your concerns seriously. I have a child who is 8 years old with autism. We watched him slowly lose his speech. Now he doesn't say anything at all. How can I help him talk again? The first step would be to see a speech therapist who would be able to draw up an individualized therapy plan for your child. And while you wait for the assessment, try using the Speech Blubs app and see if your child is interested in it. The Speech Blubs app, they do say that it is for 2 to 8 year olds, but have a go with your child, see if it is something they are interested in. Some of my kids are older than 8 years old, and they are definitely interested in the Speech Blubs app, the games in between, even the children producing the words and the sounds. So that is something to try out with your child, definitely. What are the long-term goals for autism speech therapy? Well, mainly to communicate their needs effectively in whichever mode of communication is most comfortable for your child. This might mean that some children will communicate through an AAC, augmentative and alternative communication device, such as an iPad, but they will be able to state their likes, their dislikes, wants, and needs, and to be able to comment, ideally. This, of course, is a process, as it is with speech, but learning how to communicate using whichever mode of communication will take some time. Ultimately, we do want our children to get to the point where they can communicate their thoughts, their ideas, through whichever mode of communication that they are using. I loved sharing this information with you today. Please let us know in the comment section below if you have any other questions that we didn't cover. We have a few ways for you to stay in touch and up to date with the latest content that we release. If you need any support relating to autism or related conditions, make sure that you go to the website for more information, www.aimsglobal.info. Be sure to download the Speech Blubs app from your app store, and you can also email the Speech Blubs speech therapist at askatherapist@speechblubs.com for any speech-related questions. Go and join our Facebook groups for parents right now, and don't forget to follow us on social media, Ames Global Autism and Speech Blubs on Facebook, and ames.global and Speech Blubs on Instagram.
Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest at Speech Blubs. Visit our website, speechblubs.com, for more information on speech development created by experts. Last but not least, download the Speech Blubs app to explore how you can improve your child's speech with us.